Live from WTOC, the Southeast News leader. The News Now starts on WTOC Plus.
Well, we'd like to thank you all for joining us this afternoon for the news on WTOC Plus. I'm digital anchor Jude Bankley. We start with an update to a shooting out of the Low Country from last Friday. The Jasper County Coroner's Office has identified the victim in that shooting as 19-year-old Jaden Holloway Caldwell of Pawleys Island, South Carolina. Now, the shooting happened early Friday morning in Hardeeville near Exit 5 at the Shell gas station. We should note that this investigation does remain ongoing. Again, Jasper County Sheriff's Office identifying the victim, 19-year-old Jaden Holloway Caldwell of Pawleys Island. Staying in the Low Country, an overnight house fire in Beaufort County has left a family displaced this morning. These images show the aftermath of a house fire in the Ladies Island, St. Helena area. Fire officials say crews were called to a home on Fiddler's Drive just before 8 o'clock last night, where heavy fire damage destroyed much of the roof. The homeowner told firefighters a fire had been burning in the fireplace and may have sparked the flames. Investigators are working to determine the exact cause. Fortunately, no injuries were reported, and the Red Cross is now assisting that family. Well, law enforcement officials are investigating a school bus crash that happened this morning in Pooler. Emergency crews responded to a crash at the intersection of Pine Barren Road and Pooler Parkway, where a school bus and another vehicle were involved. Now, school officials confirmed there were no students on board at the time, and both the bus driver and the driver are expected to be okay. Officers say a driver from the other car did have to be taken in for treatment, however. Authorities are not releasing details on how the crash happened. Another crash we were monitoring this morning. Savannah police say a tractor-trailer fire earlier this morning temporarily shut down the intersection of Jimmy DeLoach Parkway and Highlands Boulevard. Crews responded quickly to get the fire under control, and officers now confirm all lanes have since reopened. No injuries were reported. Well, staying on the news, the Georgia Department of Transportation says the state is making significant progress on two major projects impacting our area, two major road projects that are moving forward with positive news in 2026. One of them is I-16 widening from I-95 to State Route 67. We also have an update on the Atlanta to Savannah passenger rail study. Now, the widening project to make the 32.5-mile stretch of I-16 3 lanes each way would cost more than $510 million, as we first reported in October. In a report released this month, Georgia DOT says the project is now in the preliminary concept design and environmental study stage, which is the second step to getting the project completed. As for the rail study, they say there was significant progress made in fiscal year 2025, including the completion of key technical analysis and stakeholder engagement activities. The last passenger rail service from Savannah to Atlanta was all the way back in 1971, over 50 years ago. The hope here is to extend the route eventually all the way to Nashville. Now, the report says their study team developed an alternate route corridor and conducted surveys nationwide to better identify travel patterns in the study area. They say those efforts position the project to focus on specific routes for further development this year. Well, in state news, residents living in Middle and North Georgia really got the brunt of the ice and snowstorm that happened over the weekend. Out in Lumpkin County this morning, even some brave, bundled-up locals have ventured out into the square as things begin to thaw out. County leaders do say today looks better than anticipated because of preparation. Crews have been out all weekend long, morning and night, treating the roads and plowing the roads in the area. Now, State Senator Steve Gooch said the state and the county were well prepared for the winter storm, thanks to state meteorologists who are tracking this well in advance. Not only were county and state agencies prepared, even power companies had linemen in Lumpkin County from all over the country ready to take on any challenges that the storm brought.
We just want to shout out and say thank you because they're the real heroes of times like this, and really thankful. You know, you don't really realize how valuable power is until you don't have it for a couple of hours.
And we should note that while we haven't gotten any snow specifically here in southeast Georgia, we have been tracking a handful of cancellations and delays out of the Savannah Hilton Head International Airport. Airport officials say that, if you do plan on traveling or flying out, just check ahead of time, not because of issues here locally, but because of the, snow impacting so many areas across the South and the Midwest. There's just been a lot of cancellations, delays out of airports really across the country. We do want to turn now to some national news out of D.C., where Senate Democrats are vowing to block a crucial vote this weekend to fund the Department of Homeland Security without additional restrictions on ICE, which could trigger another partial government shutdown. The standoff follows the killing of another U.S. citizen at the hands of immigration agents in Minneapolis. President Trump, in a new social media post, just said he had a good call with Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz, and that border czar Tom Homan is heading to the state, will be in touch with the governor. Natalie Brand has been tracking all the latest news and has details from the White House.
President Trump and administration officials have sought to blame Minnesota state and local officials, as well as what it calls left-wing agitators. But the president is also acknowledging this latest incident is under review.
President Trump, in a new social media post Monday, announced he's sending border czar Tom Homan to Minnesota, saying Homan will report directly to him. The White House says Homan will be managing ICE operations on the ground in the state to continue arresting the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. In earlier social media posts following Saturday's deadly shooting of U.S. citizen Alex Preddy by immigration agents, the president accused Democratic-run sanctuary cities of refusing to cooperate with ICE. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche also blamed a lack of assistance from local authorities.
ICE is doing all of this work, doing their jobs, and local law enforcement are not being allowed to do a single thing to help.
The Trump administration has also alleged the man shot was interfering with an ICE operation. When asked by the Wall Street Journal about the officers' actions, President Trump said, we're reviewing everything, and we'll come out with a determination.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are calling for a full joint federal and state investigation, with Republican Senator Bill Cassidy saying the credibility of ICE and DHS are at stake. Democrats are also vowing to hold up a bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security as Congress faces a Friday deadline to avert a partial government shutdown.
We have a bill about funding them, giving them more money. I'm not voting for that.
Some Democrats are calling for a freeze on ICE funding and policy changes aimed at putting guardrails on immigration enforcement tactics.
The Senate will not be in until Tuesday because of the weather here today, so they have an even shorter time frame to negotiate. Now, if there are changes to the funding bill, then the House would have to come back to consider it. They are currently on recess. Natalie Brand, CBS News, the White House.
Now, we should note that one of those items in the Appropriations Act that the Senate is set to vote on includes $4 million in funding for road improvements in Pooler. The money would be for Phase 2 of the Quaco Road improvements, and in a statement, Representative Buddy Carter said, quote, "As the former mayor and longtime resident of Pooler, I've witnessed the city's population explode over the past few decades, leading to strong economic activity and an increase in demand for our roadways. As Pooler continues to grow and develop into an economic powerhouse, this funding will help increase efficiency for current and future residents alike." Again, this funding has not yet been passed. It is in the bill the Senate will vote on later this week. All right, in consumer news, many of you could see higher tax refunds this year. The Treasury Department estimates they'll average $1,000 more per household. That's because many filers didn't adjust their withholdings when recent income tax breaks began. Back here at home, the NAACP held a meeting yesterday in Chatham County to discuss multiple topics involving the Housing Authority of Savannah. One of the main topics discussed in yesterday's meeting was the status of Yamacraw Village and the proposal for it to be demolished. The new director of the NAACP says that if approved, at least 100 new affordable housing units will be built in its place. Now, she emphasized that the current state of the units at Yamacraw are not equipped for citizens' daily needs. She also mentioned that the rumor of SCAD potentially buying the land is false.
We get a number of calls on a daily basis about what's happening with the Yamacraw housing project. And we also get calls from the tenants who are being dislocated or relocated concerning their status. And so it's a chance for the new director, who's here from Louisiana. So she's new to Savannah, so we're looking forward to meeting her.
The request of the demolition of Yamacraw Village is still pending at this time. Stick with WTOC for updates. This is something our Camacan has been following for months now. After the state of Tennessee started a domestic violence registry, one woman in the hostess city wants to bring that same kind of idea right here to Georgia. Savannah Marchant says it touched her heart when she saw the concept in Tennessee. She says she grew up in a domestic violence household and says it affects everyone in some shape or form, and it's an ongoing issue in many of our communities. She says starting a DV registry will help people protect themselves and children in their homes, sort of like a warning. So far, she started a petition and has been sharing it around the community to get a registry in Georgia.
Not too many people actually speak out because some people are actually too scared, or they don't think law enforcement would actually help them, or they're too scared of where they're going to end up at. They don't realize how many safe homes we have and actually the resources that can actually help them.
The hope is to have it so people are able to protect themselves and their children by knowing somebody's history. She says staying quiet is not protecting anyone. And in the meantime, we should note our area does have safe shelters and counselors for victims of domestic violence. In consumer news, if you're getting calls and texts from a debt collector on your phone, how do you know if it's real or if it's a scam? Well, in this Watching Your Wallet, consumer investigative reporter Rachel DePapa speaks with a bankruptcy attorney about how to tell if you really owe money.
These days, it's difficult to know if a real debt collector is actually contacting you. Leslie Tane, a debt relief attorney with years of experience, says there's so many robocalls and even artificial intelligence calls now, it can be confusing to know if you really do owe money. She says don't give them your social security number or bank account information. Instead, ask questions.
If somebody's contacting you and you're not sure that that's a legitimate debt collector, ask them for their information, their full name, their contact phone number, the name of their company, if they have a file number, who the original creditor was. Remember that a debt collector is often collecting on behalf of.
Tane says hang up the phone and check out the information they gave you before you call them back. Ask them to send you verifiable information in writing by U.S. mail. That way you can see if it's money you actually owe.
So it's really important more than ever to monitor your credit and verify anybody contacting you by phone, social media, somebody sending you a text message, a solicitation, anything like that. It's super important to go back and verify with that creditor.
Tane also says don't give specific information about your finances over the phone or any information about your family, your job, or where you live. With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Rachel DePampa.
Well, before we sign off here on WTOC Plus, we do have something just into our newsroom that we wanted to tell you about, as the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office say that they are getting reports of some residents being unable to call 911. The reports are specifically coming from Charter Communications about outages that, again, may impact some customers' ability to dial 911. The Sheriff's Office says anyone who is experiencing issues, you can call the non-emergency dispatch line. That's at 843-524-2777, and you can reach emergency services that way. Again, this is for customers of Charter Communications who may be experiencing issues calling 911 this afternoon. Call that non-emergency dispatch line if you do have an emergency, and here at WTOC, we'll let you know when those 911 lines are back up. And with that, we're going to conclude things here for the news on WTOC Plus. Thanks for spending part of your afternoon with us. We'll be back in just about 15 minutes for the First Alert Weather Show with Dave Turley, taking a look at some very cold temperatures that we'll be experiencing throughout the week. Really frigid over the weekend. So enjoy the sunlight this afternoon while we have it. It's still very cold, though. My computer's saying 28 degrees right now. My goodness. We'll be under freezing for quite some time. So bundle up if you got kids waiting at the school bus. Make sure that they're warm and toasty, gloves, coats, all that. But our Mets will be back to break it all down here in just over 10 minutes on WTOC Plus. So stay tuned for that. We'd like to thank you all for watching. And here's Local News Live.